Good morning to one and all, respected dignitaries, faculty members, and my dear participants. On behalf of Gujarat Technology University, Graduate School of Engineering Technology, I welcome you in all 7th webinar expert talk on data transformation with Panda series and Pandas data frames organized by GTU GSET in association with Vodafone Foundation India. Graduate School of Engineering and Technology is started in 2017. It is AICTE approved institute established and managed by GTU. Currently, two PG courses, ME in Cybersecurity and ME in Mobile Communication Network Technology, is running at the institute. We are also starting one-year PG program in data science from this year. The vision of this institute is provide excellence technical knowledge and preparing competent manpower in respective specialization. With this aim, we organize this webinar series. I found my immense pleasure in introducing our today's session expert, Mr. Sagar Shinde, subject expert matter from Learning with Vodafone University Engagement Program. It is under the CSR initiative of Vodafone Intelligence Solution. He has a professional experience of the 7 years into the industry and the teaching. A major area of interest including data science, deep learning for computer vision, microwave communication. So let us welcome our today's vibrant expert, Mr. Sagar Sinde sir. Thank you one and all for joining active participant. Sagar sir,
Yeah.
over
Hello,
to
sir.
you.
Good morning. Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for my introduction and welcome. And I welcome you all. Very warm welcome for this session. I hope my audio is clear to all. Can I get a few responses for that? I hope my audio is clear, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So our today's topic is related with one of the data analysis tools, a very popular one and a very essential one also. That is Pandas, right? So it is a package which is going to help people for data science projects or data analysis projects, right? And it is uh, very popular because of its some of the properties or some of the functions which are there, right? That can help you to get the data from external world and converting into a Python object, right? To manipulate it, to do something with it. Right? So that is the basic reason why Pandas is very uh, popular, right, nowadays. We will go with, first of all, what is the background behind it. So we have seen NumPy in the previous session. So there is a definitely there will be a question why we are going for another package if we can manipulate data in the form of NumPy, because it can handle data pretty well, right? And it is fast also, that we have seen through our last session. So we have to understand why we need to go for another package which is there that is going to be used for data analysis purpose, right? So first we will address that point, and then we will look for what are the different data structures into Pandas, and later on, with continuing with that, we are going to work on Pandas different functions and utilities, right? So that will be hands-on part. Right? So I would request all of you to just go for your Jupyter notebooks, just launch it, because we will be requiring it in few minutes. And I will just share my screen first of all for my presentation. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. So we are going to talk about, first of all, the limitations of NumPy. Okay, because that will be the reason why we are going to move towards Pandas. So the first thing into NumPy, which is a very important one also, that it only handles the homogeneous data types. So whatever we feed into a NumPy array, basically it needs to be of the same data type. It needs to be homogeneous, or if we provide something in a form of heterogeneous kind of data, it got converted into homogeneous data type, right? So that is called as type coercion, which is there with NumPy. But definitely into real world scenarios, we will not come across such kind of data types or data sets. So they will definitely contain entities which will be of different data formats. Like there can be different strings, there can be integers also, float numbers basically, right? Uh, for those kind of what you can say, uh, what you can say, mixed kind of data types, right? We have to have something, that can directly manipulate that data rather than converting into the same data type, right? And the second thing is that with NumPy, we have seen that whenever we manipulate our NumPy object, it behaves in a different manner as compared to the other Python objects. So if we try to multiply something, for example, if we try to multiply something with a list, right? It is going to happen in a different manner. It needs to be going over an iterative loop over there, and it is going to manipulate that data accordingly. But if we go for a NumPy array, right? There is a concept of broadcasting which is over there, which will expose all the values of that NumPy array with the scalar which you want to multiply over there, right? So these two things are definitely working differently, right? That is another reason, right? That is the limitation, or you can say in some of the cases it is a limitation, in some of the cases it will be good, right? And the third and the most important thing, which is a major limitation into NumPy, is its file handling capacity. So if you talk about a real-time file from a server, from a real-world scenario, like someone is going to provide you some data set, or you are going to generate some data, right? That way, right? So the files will be much more in the form of a comma separated value, might be an Excel, right? Might be it will be a SAP data, right? Might be it will be a data from web servers, so it might be a JSON data, right? JavaScript object notation also, right? So it depends on different scenarios, and definitely we have to understand that we have to work with these scenarios, right? So definitely NumPy is not an option for that, and we have to come with some tool which can help us to understand and get these type of data from these type of files into our environment, right? For converting them into a Python object and to manipulate them. So to address that issue, we have to go for uh, another data package, right? That is basically our pandas, right? So we are going to talk about it. Just a second. Just a second. Yeah. So what is going to help us into pandas, right? What will be the main feature of pandas that can help us to do overcome all those limitations which are there into NumPy? So pandas contains two data structures. Previously it was three, nowadays it is two, right? Which addresses all these issues which we get into with NumPy. So there are two data structures with pandas. That is, first is called as series. Okay, so it's just like your NumPy array, a 1D NumPy array, but it can contain heterogeneous data types. So that is the beauty of a series, okay, which is a data structure from pandas, that it can be acting like a 1D NumPy array, but it can contain heterogeneous data, right? Second, a very popular one is data frame. So it is a 2D thing comprised of row and columns basically, right? And it is again can contain heterogeneous data types. So this is much more powerful as compared to NumPy, because it can handle heterogeneous kind of data, right? And it will be a very simple format which will be there like a row and column thing, just like a table basically, right? So we can manipulate different columns, we can manipulate different rows over there. That is possible, right? So that is second one. And a very important point which is attached with data frame is that whenever we can import a external file, the data can be directly converted into data frame. Okay, so if we import a CSV file, for example, right? So we are available with pandas. There are some functions that can directly convert that data from that file, CSV file or an Excel file, directly to data frame that can be manipulated later on, right? For our purposes, right? So that is two data structures which solves a lot of problems related with NumPy. Okay, and those are with pandas. And there was one another data structure which was there into pandas, that is called as panel, but it is now removed. And this was the point where pandas actually, why pandas is called as pandas is the reason that is panel data basically. So, the pandas word is formed by two things. So panel data, it was a 3D kind of container, but nowadays it is removed and people are totally relying on two and data structures, series and data, right? So we are going to talk on it and we are going to work on it basically to see how that different things works over there, right? Okay. So are we ready with our Jupyter notebooks? We are ready with our Jupyter notebooks. Yeah. Can I have a few more responses? So I will get the confirmation and we can move on, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So the first thing, whenever we are going to utilize a package, what is that? We have to import that package, right? So for importing NumPy, we have seen that we can import NumPy by saying import NumPy as some alias, right? And that alias we can refer to into our code later on for simplification of calling that particular package. So here also the same thing is there. I'm going to use NumPy for some of the reasons. There are a few things I'm going to utilize over here. So I'm importing NumPy also. But to import our pandas package, we can say simply like import pandas as PD. So it is going to have alias PD, which I'm going to refer to again and again into my code for referring to different functions and all that. Okay. So this is alias basically, but you can utilize any name over there. This is standard one. Only care needs to be taken that whenever you pass your code to next person, right, or you put it into production environment, that time you need to be aware that you need to give proper documentation whatever you have done for your code, right? Otherwise other people will not understand what that code is, right? Otherwise just follow the standard conventions which are there. Okay, so we can import our pandas as PD. That is the standard alias which is there. So just execute this cell and it will get imported for you. Just go for import pandas as PD and NumPy also, because we are going to use a random module from it. Okay, let me know when it is done. Okay, great. Yeah, nice, right? So the next thing, the data structures from pandas, right? How to create them, right? So we have Python objects like a list, which we can convert into series directly. Okay, so let's say I have created this list, okay, of few numbers, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, for example, right? If I have to convert this list, the Python object, into my series object from pandas, I have to use a method pd.series over it. I have to use method pd.series for it. Only the thing we need to keep in mind that there is a syntax thing that into our that function pd.series we have to keep s capital, right? So most of the time this syntax error happens, right? So just avoid that thing. So pd.series s is capital, right? And into that function or method what we have to pass the parameters of it. That is very important, right? So the first positional argument or parameter that we need to pass is the data itself. So what data we need to convert into series, that we have to tell to this particular function. So data equals to something, or you can just pass the data variable over there. That will also work. You no need to explicitly say that data equals to something, right? Only remember the sequence of parameters which is there, right? So the first parameter, sequential parameter, is your data, and the second parameter that is called as an index. Okay, so even if we are considering this as a 1D array like thing, basically containing heterogeneous kind of data, we are coming with the idea of index, right? So we can give different index names to this particular thing, right? So it is not like your NumPy array where we cannot do that particular thing. We can do that thing, that we can include our custom indexes over there, right? How that index and value thing looks like, we will print our series, so we will come to know about it, right? But to show that how to get the indexes for it, you can define indexes explicitly, right? Like this: index equals to some list of them. Okay. And let's say we print our series. Okay, so you can see that A, B, C, D, E, those are the indexes, and 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 are the values for those indexes. Okay, now one question comes into mind: if we don't give index argument, okay, because for example, there might be a chance that there are lots of values, that is possible into practical scenarios. So what will happen in that case? So if we don't define that parameter of indexes, it will give you natural indexes. So natural indexes basically is from 0 to any value which is present over there, right? So if we go for that, in this particular second code snippet, I have not given that index parameter into my pd.series method, right? Okay. And if I go for it, right, you will observe that it is getting natural indexes from 0 to whatever onwards is there. Okay. So that is possible. And to prove our point that we have created a series thing or series object, basically, we can type our object. We can use our type method over our object which we have created. So that will give you the answer as it is a pandas core object, which is series. Okay, right. So just go for this. Let me know if it works for you. Please make sure you put conversation after you put that chat box conversation as yes or done after you do it, right? Means done with that, right? Because that way I will only know to come to know that the things are done, right? Okay, great, right? That way. I need to switch between the windows for that, so sorry to bother you for doing it. Okay, great, right? Okay, can I have a few more responses? Okay, right. So I can see few more responses to go to confirm that thing is understood and done. Yeah, right. Okay. Now, as we can convert a list into a series, right? That way we can convert a dictionary also to a series, right? And that is very, very easy. We don't have to even give the indexes for it, right? If we define an dictionary, for example, this dictionary, okay, which is having key values as A, B, C, D, E, right, and having some values related with that, okay, we can convert this into a series object just passing it inside that pd.series method, right, and we don't have to define the indexes for it, right? So by default, this pd.series method, whenever it will encounter a dictionary, it will take its keys as the indexes. It will take these keys as the indexes for the series which it will create, right? So let's go for this and we will have the same kind of response, right? A, B, C, D, E are the indexes and there are some values related with it, right? Okay, so just go for this also. And to prove our point that we have created a series, we can go for, getting the type of it. Let me increase a font of this a bit. I guess that will be more preferable. Okay, just let me know when you guys are done. Okay, great. Right. Can I have a few more responses? Okay, right. Okay. Now we will see how to manipulate these series, right? So, for example, we take manipulation between two series, right? And for that, the important point or the point of concern is that we need to understand that series elements will be manipulating with each other, right? If there are two series, for example, they will be manipulating with each other based on their indexes. Okay, so they will these both series will try to map if the same index is present into another series or not, and depending on that, whatever the function we need to do, for example, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? That way, basically, that we can do based on that particular index value if it is present over there, right? So, for example, we create a series, let's say in the name of series one. Okay, this one, we reduce font a bit, yeah, this one, right? So series pd dot series. Okay, the data is this 1 2 3 4 5, for example, and these are the keys, or you can say indexes for them, right? So India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Russia, and England, for example, right? I've included this particular component for showing that, if we don't have the indexes mapped properly in both the series, what will happen for that case, right? So there will be one extra, what you can say, parameter over there for indexes. Okay, if we print for it, right, we will have a series like this. Okay, and let's create another series and let's print it. Okay, so in this second series, we have only 4 elements and we have 4, identical indexes for it, right? That way. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to add them, series 1 and series 2. Now, according to what we have, tried to understood, that it will try to manipulate the data based on the indexes only. So it will look for the index India. Okay, it will find the value for index India into your series one. It will look for the same index India into series number two and look for the value of it, and whatever operation we want to perform, it will perform, right? Okay, but if we go for this last case, which is England, right? That particular index is not present into series number two, right? So in that case, this will happen, right? So it will not show you any value for that. It is not going to show you any value for that, right? Because the index for the second series is not matching, right? So it cannot perform that particular operation. But for other indexes, the addition happened properly, right? So this is manipulation of, series elements, which is based on their indexes. Okay, right. Try to go for this also. Any other operation, not necessarily this one. Please let me know when it is done. Okay. Can I have a few more responses? We entered integers and it gives float as a value. Yes, yeah. So what is going to happen, that type coercion thing is there, right? So if you enter integers also or float also, right, that way, it will get converted into float. So it depends on the data type which is there. default data type. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will wait for few more responses. So to confirm the thing. Okay. Right. Okay. Nice. Yeah. Now the next structure, right? Data structure is data frame, right? And a very useful one. Just try to look for the syntax of it. So general syntax for creating a data frame is pd.dataFrame. Again, just mind the two first letters of that data frame thing, right? So here the syntax thing is there. We need to take care of that, right? So pd.dataFrame. The argument which we need to pass, positional arguments we need to pass into this method, right? The first positional argument is the data, which we have to get as the data frame. Second is index labels. So basically, you can refer to it as row names or row labels, right? And the third one is column labels, right? So column names, right? That we have to provide. If we don't provide it, right, by default, it will take natural indexing. If we don't provide it, by default, it will take natural indexing. So that is true for this data frame also, right? So let's try to create a data frame like this, for example. Not necessary you have to follow this. You can do any other example also. So pd.data frame. The first thing I'm putting is the data, but for that I'm not giving any list or something like that. I'm using my method from NumPy, that is a random number generator from a random module, right? So we are going to create a 5x4 thing of random numbers. So 5 rows and 4 columns. So those many values of random numbers will be there, right? And to give the names to our indexes, we have to provide at least 5 labels, right? Because we are talking about 5 rows. So 5 labels we need to provide. Otherwise, if you don't provide it, it will give you natural indexes, right? And for addressing your column names, we have to provide 4 labels to it, right? That way, correct? So if we create a data frame now, it will look like this, just like a tabular form. Okay, having some rows and some column values. Okay, so try to create a data frame. Try to go for creating a data frame. Then we will dive into what are the different methods for it. Okay, done. Great. Can I have a few more responses? Okay. Right. Okay. So we will move forward and we will look now how we can utilize this data frame, right? For looking at different aspects of it. For example, referring to different values of it, right? Subsetting it or making some manipulation. For example, specifically for data pre-processing kind of thing, right? So that we will see now, right? So the first thing, a very important thing, how to access the elements from this data frame. Okay. For example, if I have to access, if I have to go for a column from this data frame, let's say the column name is W, for example, right? That I have to access from this data frame. I can do subsetting over it. So the the kind of subsetting which we were doing into our NumPy arrays, right? That can also be applied over here. So subsetting parameters will be passed like this. So you have to refer to that data frame's name. You have to put square brackets and you have to put the name of that particular column, right? So with that, you will get that particular column. So this is how to subset and access the column from your data frame, right? If you have to go for multiple columns at the same time, then there is another thing you need to do, that you need to pass the multiple column names as a list inside this subsetting parameter, right? As a subsetting parameter, sorry, right? So let's say if you have to look for two columns at the same time, W and Z, right? Okay, so you have to include these W and Z as a list, as a parameter inside your subsetting for df1, right? So there you can observe two square brackets, right? Basically that you are passing a list inside the subsetting thing, right? That you will get your two columns over there for it, right? So this way you can go for multiple columns at the same time. Okay, subset it. Okay, just try this subsetting thing. When you are going for multiple things, right, just mind that you are passing a list for, referring to multiple columns. Okay. Okay. Great, right. Okay. Okay. Now, if I have to look for a particular row, okay, by either referring to its value, so a row number or row value, these are two different things. For example, here these things are not called as rows, basically they are index, sorry for that, right? So if you want to refer to an index value, index values are a, b, c, d, e, right? Okay, and index number are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that, right? So if you want to get a particular row, okay, or a particular row and column kind of a mixture, right? And if you want to get it from the value of the index, right, there is another method for it. And if you want to get it from the number of the index, right, there is other method for it, right? So these popular two methods for data selection, or what you can say subsetting, basically are called as LOC and ILOC. So basically lock and ILOC, right? And they are quite useful, and most of the time people try to get at the idea whether the person know about it or not, right, in kind of interview kind of situations, right? So if you have to go for the values of the index, right, for referring to a, b, c, d, e explicitly, right? Okay, then you have to go for lock method, right? .loc method, right? So how to go for it? For example, if I want to refer to only index a from my data frame, okay, so I can go for a .loc method over my data frame, okay, and as a subsetting argument I have to pass the name of my index. Okay, so that way we will get only that row for all the columns W, X, Y, and Z. Okay, right? If you have to go for the same row or same index but with the index number, so you can use iloc method. Okay, so df1.iloc. Okay, and as an argument for subsetting, you have to pass that index number, right? So it will show you the same thing. It will show you the A column for those W, X, Y, and Z. That same index for W, X, Y, and Z columns, right? Okay. if you have to get a block of code values from your data frame, for example, right? So let's say this particular example that you have to get A and C indexes, right? And what are the values for those A and C indexes for W and Y columns? That way you want to look at the data, right? You want to get those values only, right? So you can use a .loc method for it, right? And you have to pass that argument like this, right? I will show you that. Okay, I will suppress these. It will be less confusing. Okay, so you need to pass that argument inside your .loc method for your data frame as a list, right? So first list you will pass, that will be your index number, index values, and second list after comma you will pass that will be your what you can say column names, right? So it is looking like a list of a list basically, but it is not like that. It is LOC methods, what you can say subsetting brackets, right? And inside it we have passed two lists. First list refers to the index number, index values. Second list refers to the column values. Okay, so that way we'll get our that subset from our data frame. Okay, just try this also. LOC, ILOC, and subsetting, getting a particular block from our data frame. Okay. Okay, please let me know when, yeah, you execute it. Okay, great. Okay, I will wait for a few more responses. Okay, great, right. Okay, now the same subsetting thing, right, that we can do into NumPy, we have replicated over here, and in the same manner, we can use Boolean conditions also for subsetting. Those we were using for our NumPy arrays also, right? So for that, we can utilize a Boolean condition. For example, if I want to look for only the values which are greater than 0 inside my df1, okay, so I can use that df1 greater than 0 as this particular is a condition, right? So this condition I can utilize as a Boolean condition inside my subsetting parameter as a subsetting parameter for df1, right? So depending on whether this condition is true or false for a particular element inside df1, I will get the output for those numbers only, and other numbers will be, or other places will be an a in that case, that will be missing, right? It will not come, right? So if I execute this, you will only visualize those values which are greater than 0, right? And other values will be an a, not a numeric value, right? That is basically a missing value type into our NumPy or pandas. Okay, so that is Boolean subsetting for your data frame. And this is very, very useful in many of the cases because you have to subset your data accordingly. And here I'm showing kind of a view of that data whenever we use some condition over it, right? But it is good or recommended that we create separate data frame for each and every condition, right? So it is better that we, whenever we take some data from outside, right, we keep an original data frame of it, okay? And whenever we try to manipulate that data, depending on different conditions, right? For that purpose, we can create different data frames So our original data will not get affected. And anytime you feel that some procedure is wrong, or by accident something happened over there, that you can directly refer to your original data frame, right? So that way it is better to create different variables or data frames, new data frames from your data, existing data, and keep your existing data intact, right? That way. Yeah, I'm just showing the view of it. I have not saved it inside some variable. I'm just trying to put the things like that. If I do this, right, what will be the output? So it's a kind of a mirror or copy for the condition that way. Okay, right. That is Boolean. Okay, let me know if it is done. Okay. Right. Can I have a few more responses? Okay. Right. Yeah. Right. So we will move. Okay. Now we will see the data pre-processing kind of part. What is the functionality which is provided inside Pandas, right? That makes it so popular into data pre-processing. So one of the things many of us will encounter whenever we are doing a data analysis or a data science project is that there will be possibility. There is a possibility that there will be variables which will not relate with our data set. Okay, so there might be a chance that some variable will be included into our data set which totally does not relate with whatever the question we are trying to solve from our data analysis or from our data science problem statement, right? So that variable will be a burden to your computation, right? Basically your machine learning algorithm to solve it, because whenever you include a variable extra which is not of any use, right, inside your machine learning algorithm, that is additional feature which is included into that algorithm, right? So that is going to increase the dimension of that particular problem set, right? And definitely a multidimensional thing is of computational complexity, as well as it takes computational facility more, it exerts it more that way also. And the question will be very, very complex in that case, right? So you will not be focusing on the major aspect of what is going to so solve your question, right, solution, and your attention will be diverted, or it will be distributed in those parameters which will not be of any use to you, right? So those kind of variables definitely anyone try to drop. Okay, they don't want to keep it in their data set. So dropping a variable, basically a column in our context, because we are converting that into a data frame, that means there will be row and column things, right? So your variable will be most probably coming as a column over there. So if you want to drop it, right, or if you want to drop a record, for example, there are 1,000 records for 1,000 people, and for a particular person there are a lot of values which are missing over there, lot of variables for him are missing over there. Definitely that record is not going to help your machine learning model to understand what is going on, right? So it will not be of any use to train your machine learning model, right? So that way also you need to drop that record also, that row also. So dropping is very important whenever you feel that kind of data is there. Okay, or even missing values are there. So our pandas object, whenever it is created, right? So we create a data frame, basically that is a pandas object, just like your referencing of object from a class, right? So if we create a pandas data frame object, we can use dot drop method on it. For example, if I want to drop my row or index A from my df1 which we have created earlier, right? I can do that by using this dot drop method, right? And the parameters I need to pass inside it, the first thing, a very essential one, is the name of that index, right, which I need to drop. Second thing, I need to tell my drop method from which axis I am going to drop this particular thing, right? So definitely I'm going to drop it through rows, and for rows axis is considered as zeros. For columns, the axis is considered as one, right? So I have to define my axis as zero, right? And a very important parameter inside your drop function, that is in place. Okay, so if we set this in place as false, okay, this is just going to create a view or copy for me. Okay, so it is going to create a copy for me, copy of df1 for me, if I do a drop index a from my data frame. Okay, right? This is just a copy, so it is not going to modify my original data frame if I do this in place equals to false. But if I set this in place equals to true, right, so it is not going to create any copy for me. Okay, it is directly going to modify my data frame df1 that way. So that way this becomes very essential and useful parameter. Okay, so let's say we create a copy of it, right? And we will again look for the data frame to prove our point, that thing is there, like it is creating a copy and it is not modifying my original data frame. So let's say df1 dot drop that particular thing. Okay, so now if I execute that with in place equals to false, this is a view which is created for that df1. Okay, but if I look at my data frame, okay, I comment this and I look at my original data frame, right? The index A is retained over there. So this df1 does not get modified. Okay. That is the magic of this particular in place equals to false. On the contrary, if I use in place equals to true for the same kind of example, right? Okay. Now I suppress this thing. Okay. Now if I do that, it will not give me any output. It is going to replace whatever the things are there inside the original data frame. So there is no view created over there for in place equals to true. But if I now look at my df1, right, this one, okay, we will see that df1 got modified directly, right? Okay, that happened because of this in place equals to true. Okay, so this is to drop your rows. If you want to drop your columns, right, then again the thing is same, right, that we need to provide first argument as your column name, second argument as axis equals to 1. Okay, because we are referring to columns, and in place parameter again we can tweak with, if you want to keep it or modify it that way, right? So that is your drop functionality, right? Okay, so just go for this also and let me know. I hope that in place thing is clear. Okay. Mm, Jay, I didn't got your question, sir. This program is used for machine engine running purpose. Mm, sorry. Can you rephrase your question? I'm not getting the context of it. Or you can turn on your mic also. No problem with that. Microphone also. Is it possible for you to turn your microphone? Jay, are you there? Method chaining. I'm not sure what you are referring to, Yash. Okay, that's okay, Jay. Right. So if you were referring to machine learning thing, right? Yeah, we are going to use any package basically for data analysis for that particular purpose, right? I'm not sure whether that was your question or not, right? And yes, I'm not sure what you are referring to. Method chaining in pandas means, can you put your question, Yash, again? Or okay, okay. So are we done till this point? So can we move? Like, okay, okay, great. Can I have a few more responses to confirm? Yeah, okay, right. Okay, okay, okay. Right. So we were talking about Boolean conditions, right? We have seen how to subset it. We can also do subsetting by using parameters as well as Boolean together, right? So how to do that particular thing? Okay, because that can be one of the possible solutions you have to use somewhere, right? So if you have to use Boolean plus your subsetting parameters, right, for subsetting your data frame, you can put your boolean condition right inside your subsetting parameter. Okay, and then you need to go for your subsetting parameters separately, right, as a list basically, right? Okay, so there is no comma, nothing like that. Try to understand, there is no that kind of syntax is present, right? So this is a separate argument after df1, and if you have to subset according to parameters like column names or row names basically, there is a separate parameter, right? There is no column comma or something like that in here, right? So this will give you that kind of subsetting. So what is this doing is it is looking for w column, okay, for the values which are greater than 0, okay, and at the same time, whenever w is greater than 0, it is giving you out values for x and y. Okay, so that way. So it looks for this w, right? It looks for whatever the value is greater than 0, right? It goes for that particular x and y. Okay, right? So Boolean condition plus your subsetting, right? Together. Only the concern point is your syntax that you need to look for, right? Okay, try this one also for any other condition. Mind that we are running it, if you are running with the same thing, right, with the random module, that things will be different if you run it again and again, right? Okay, okay, done. Okay, great, right. There is another method into pandas, right, which will help you to deal with indexes. Okay, so if we have to reset our index to natural indexes, so we have given some custom indexes to it, right? and now we need to convert those custom indexes to natural indexes, right? That time we have to use a method called as reset index over our data frame, right? For example, this one. So we are going to convert our df1 into df3, another data frame you can say, right? And we are going to use a dot reset index method over it, right? And we are going to say that a drop equals to true. So what is this drop parameter, we will see, okay? But let's have a look at this df3 first, right? Okay, so now df3, which was formed from df1, have the exactly same values which were there into df1, right? But the indexes are changed, they are natural. So your dot reset index method changes your indexes into natural ones, right? So that is the first thing we need to understand, right? And there is a parameter drop inside it. Whenever we say drop equals to true, right, the original indexes which were there inside this data frame df1, they will be dropped, so they will not be returned. If we say this as false, okay, the original data frames indexes will be included into your new data frame, okay, or the same data frame as an column. Okay, so the previous or the old indexes will be included as a column if we say that drop equals to false, right? If we say drop equals to true, right, that means we have to drop those indexes, right? So this is your reset index with drop parameter, right? And accordingly, there is another method that is set index. Okay, so if we have to utilize a particular column uh, as an index, so why we will require it? That is the first question. So if we have to sequence, for example, try to understand this question. This situation, if we have to sequence our data, and there is a column somewhere as a timestamp into our data frame, right? So we can utilize that timestamp to sequence our data. We can put it into sequential form by utilizing our timestamp, right? So that time we have to convert that timestamp as an index of our data frame, right? So for that purpose, we can use this set index method. Or there is another option that you can just create a column inside your data frame, and you can use a dot index method over your data frame. So that will just take whatever the thing is there inside that column, or you can do vice versa also. That is also possible, right? But this is the simple method to do it, right? Set index, right? So let's say we create another data frame df4, okay, from our data frame df1, okay, and we utilize our set index method over it, and let's say we have to create an index with the column z, right? Okay, if we do it right, this will be our output. So z will be our new index, and columns will be w, x, and y. So it got converted into index, right? It is not returned as a column now. Okay, so just try these two things, reset index and set index. Every time we do manipulation on our data frame, like doing any arithmetic manipulation or creating a separate data frame or something like that. So whenever a new data frame is created, you will find that most probably this reset index method is applied over it, right? Because whenever we do extraction from our data frame, the indexes will get disturbed for the new data frame, depending on some condition we are taking it, right? So that way the indexes will be in different manner, right? So they will be taking values from let's say row number 5, then row number 7, row number 9, that way, right? So if we have to create again them in a sequential manner, proper manner, we have to use that reset index method after we do manipulation with our data frames for our new data frame, right? Okay. Yes, Jay. we are doing the pandas, inferencing using Python only, right? So pandas is not a software, or it is a language basically, right? Yeah, correct. Yeah, Yash referred to that same thing, right? So Python is a programming, or more precisely, it is called as a scripting language, right? And pandas is a module or package which comes with a lot of functions which we can utilize uh, into as Python basically, right? Or a data analysis kind of purpose, or doing any other things like for data analysis also, right? For data science projects, for data visualization also, right? So everything is actually pretty much included. For example, uh, creating a simple thing from your Python directly as a function, that is also possible. Yeah. And you can use these packages for getting different functions for utilization also. That is also possible, right? Okay. So everything is pretty much connected, right? From your Python, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib for data visualization, right? That is also. Yeah. Okay. So are we done with this? Can I have few responses? Yeah. Okay. Great. Right. Okay. So we'll move forward. Yeah. Okay. Now we will see how to deal with missing values, right? So we have seen that when we have applied some Boolean condition over there, right? The answer came to be some numbers and then some NaN values, right? So basically not a numerical value, right? Which was there present inside that data frame. So if we get that sort of data frame where values are missing, okay, for example, this kind of dictionary we create, okay, where some of the values are missing. Okay, so for key A, there is one value missing. Okay, for key B, there are two values missing, right? That way. Okay, if we have to deal with that kind of data, right? Either to drop them, or fill them basically. We are going to see how to do that, right? So let's say we create a data frame from this particular dictionary, right? Let's print it. So it will look like this. Okay, and if we have to drop every NaN value, okay, if we have to drop a column or row for every NaN value which is present over there, we can simply use drop NA method over our data frame, right? So that will drop your values, missing values, right? If we don't provide any argument inside that drop NA method, it is considering by default that we are referring to rows, right? If we provide access equals to something, let's say 1, then it is going to look for the columns, right? Explicitly. Otherwise, it will be considering rows only. But that does not matter because you are utilizing that drop NA over your entire data frame. So it is going to drop your NaN value, right? So if I utilize this, right, this will be your output, right? Only zeroth index row will be surviving and other two rows will be dropped. Other two indexes will be dropped, right? If I don't do this, and if I include the access parameter over there, right, access equals to 1, right, in that case, right, so the columns will be dropped now, A and B, and C will be surviving, right, because we are referring our drop in a method to drop across columns, not rows now, right? So that is also possible. Or if we have to set any particular condition for this, right? So there is a parameter which let us to set a condition into our drop NA, that is called as a threshold, right? So we can set this thresh parameter equal to something. Okay, so let's say we say it for thresh equals to 2. So what this drop NA will look for now, it will look for a different, as we are not providing access equals to something, it will look for rows those have less than two non-NaN values. As we had defined our thresh equals to 2, it will look for rows, row number this, and row number this, okay, which will have less than two non-Na values. Okay. So here, if we look, our 0th row is having 3 non-NA values, right? Here, there are 2 non-NA values, and here there is only 1 non-NA value, right? So the parameter is satisfying. This parameter is satisfying only for index number 2. Okay, right? So it is going to drop NA is going to drop this thing only and going to keep these two things, right? Okay. So if I I will suppress this and I will open up this, right? Okay, and let's do this, right? Okay, so the first two rows are going to survive, right? The last one got dropped because it contained less than 2 non-NA values. So your thresh parameter refers to non-NA values, right? Okay, so just try this dropping missing values thing. Yeah, I will explain that thresh parameter. Yeah. Okay, I will explain that particular thresh parameter and the feedback link. Arjit, I will provide you the link after the session, right? That, yeah. So it will be passed to you, right? Okay, one more question is there when we convert the data frame. So our array shape, sorry for that. Our array shape should be same size, right, sir? Whenever we are, converting something to data frame, right? If you are explicitly giving the, what do you say, index values and column values for it, right? Yes, right? So in that case, you need to be sure that these values will be of the same type, right? Okay. Otherwise, what will happen? You will not get those values, index values for that, and you will not get column values for that, right? So if you are not sure that how many rows will be there or how many columns will be there for that data set which you are including as a data frame, right? Then it is better to not to include a index name explicitly and column name explicitly, right? So that way, what you will get is directly the natural numbering for it, right? Okay, yeah. Otherwise, there will be no meaning, right? So it will be very random in that case. So if we are not able to understand how many number of rows and columns are there for it, right? It is better to go with natural indexing. When we set thresh equals to 4 at this time, it's giving us empty because you are looking for non-NA values greater than 4, right now. Sorry for that. When we set thresh equals to 4, I will just go for that question. Just a minute. There's another meeting going on. I think that is the pop-up of it. When we set thresh equals to 4 at the time, it's giving us empty table y. Thresh equals to 4. Okay, for drop NA, so it is looking for less than 4. It is looking for less than 4 non-NA values, right, to drop. Okay, so do you have less than 4 non-NA values over here? It is not possible in this case, right? You are referring to only 3 values over here now for every row, correct? So if you are setting as thresh equals to 4 in this case, right? So it is referring to only with this condition, it will refer to only less than 4 non-NA values and it will drop that particular row, right? Correct now? What output you are getting? Harsh, what output is there? Empty. Is it like that? Just let me check that particular thing. Thresh equals to 4, right? Okay. Non-any values to drop the row. Thresh equals to 4. No. I think it needs to be according to that number of elements inside that row. I'm not sure, but it requires those many number of elements into that row. If we set a threshold right that way. The index is only until that is one of the reasons, but we have to make sure that the elements into that particular row are according to what we are referring as a threshold, right? That way. But I'm not so sure about it. I will check it definitely. No. Okay. So are we done up to this? Done with this? Yeah. Okay. Right. So we will move. There are a few more methods. Sorry for stretching it somewhat, but they are important one. For example, if we don't want to drop those things, right? We have to feel something over there inside that particular missing value, right? So what we can do? So for that, there is a feel and a method, okay, which we can utilize over our data frame some column. So for example, if we take our example of this latest data frame which we have created, so inside column B, right, there are some missing values, right? Okay, so if we have to fill these missing values with the mean of the column, right? Why we have to go for the mean of the column? If you get a data set and if there are values missing and you decide that you don't drop it and you fill it with something, you need to understand the context of the data, right? And by understanding the context of the data, you will come to know whether you have to go for the fill something method or not, because in most of the cases it will not be possible to replicate the value, artificially create that value, right? Because that can be anything, right? For a particular record, that can be anything, but most probably it is happening that the data which is present over there in that variable, right, it's somewhat related with a particular mean, right? So it is around some central value which is present over there, right? So we have to, if we decide to fill it, right, it is best option to fill it with the mean of it, okay, or a median of that data set which is there in question, or mode of the data which is present. So the most of the values which are repeated over and over again, that we can utilize as mode, right? Or we can take the mean, or we can take the median of it. So that is probably a good solution to fill our values, right? So that we can do by using value parameter over there, and as an value to it, your data frames column dot mean method over it, right? So that way we can fill it with mean of our data, and as there was only one value, right, so it got reflected as the field value, right? So that is fill and a method, right? On the contrary to this, if you don't have to do this kind of thing, right, for NaN values, if you have to replace something, for example, let's refer to this data frame, okay, where there are two what you can say values are there, or keys are there, 1 and 2, and for them different values are there, right? Okay, but you can see that the values 2000 and 1000 are definitely far different than the actual range of that data, right? Okay, so definitely it is not going to fit into this data. Okay, this is a kind of a odd man out, might be a faulty entry, right? Possible, and we identify that it is a faulty entry, then we can replace it with something. So for that we can use a dot replace method over our data frame, okay, and we have to pass a dictionary of key and value, right? For example, keys will be the things which we want to replace from our data, right? And values will be the things which we want to stuff in that place, right? So for 1000 I will stuff 10, for 2000 I will say stuff 60, right? Okay, if we do that, those value will get replaced. Okay, so this is for replacing a specific value, not to deal with NaN values, right? Okay, this is a replacing thing. We can replace it with anything. So, that second thing is replacing that with replaced. If we include too many values for 30. Okay, so just try this missing a fill NA and a replace method. Okay. Okay, great. Two more responses to confirm. Great. Okay, right. Okay, and now a very important thing, that is group by function. So let's say we create a data frame like this. Okay, a simple one, where companies are there, company names are there into one of the columns, company A, company B, and company C. And for those companies, there are salespersons which are there, right? And their sales, which is done by them, right? By those people from those companies, right? That is present, right? So if I have to look for the sales, total sales done by a particular company, let's say company A, company B, and company C, right? Then how I can do that, right? This is very simple over here because the data frame is very, very simple. But if you are with 10,000 rows or something like that, definitely, and they are not arranged accordingly, they are placed here and there, right? Then definitely a group by thing will come into picture, right? So what you can do, you can group by your data frame according to some column of your interest, right? Like this. So df6 dot group by, and we have to group by on company names. Okay, so we have to pass our argument as company, right? Column name basically inside your group by. And what we are going to look forward to it, that we are grouping by company, and we have to look for the sales sum for that company. So this will take this particular thing, these two entries, this group by thing will take these two entries. Okay, and it will take this sales column and it will take the sum of it, right? So that we will come to know for company A what was the sale, for company B what was the sale, and likewise for company C, right? So if I print this variable now for group by, okay, we can get directly the sales done for that particular company, right? Okay, this is just an example, but whenever you are running with multiple records, thousands of records, this will be definitely, valuable, right? Okay, so just try this also. Okay, when we use fill and replace and we print data frame, then it prints old values. Why? When we use fill and replace. Uh, Jashwant sir, old data in the sense of, are you printing it the data frame or you are printing the replace or fill in it? Because if you apply the replace or fill in and you don't save it somewhere, right? Okay, then the view of that particular thing will be created. So it will not get reflected into your fill in. Okay. Yeah. So you need to save it somewhere. Okay. If you want to change it, right? If you want to have a permanent object, right, for it, you need to save it somewhere. Can you please show another example for group? Let's say for group by, what we can do. Mm, you have to create something for it. Or let's say we take the a mean of it. Let's say, right. For example, there are multiple entries for the companies only, so we have to group by that thing only. So let's say if we create the mean of the cells which is there, right? So you just replace that with dot mean, right, for the cells parameter. uh, mm, what we can do, let's say we create something else rather than, let's say, let's create data. Okay, and we create it in the form of, like, for example, a dictionary, right? First divisions. Okay, and for divisions we give multiple values, like for example a. Okay, then b. Okay, let's create multiple divisions, right? Multiple instances of it, right? So we can group by over it, right? That way. Okay. Let's say c. Okay, say b. Okay, that way, right? And into it again we can put, let's say, some names, students, right? And let's create another list for it. Let's say Sagar. Okay, then there is Niyas, right? Let's say, okay, Saroj. Okay, mm, okay, just some random names, right? No offenses. Okay, and let's say BC, right? That way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We need to provide two more. Let's say, mm, just Swapnil. Okay, and let's say another person XYZ, right? That way, right? Correct. Okay, and say we put the marks or grades for them. For example, with the marks like 70. What? How many values we need to provide? Minimum 6, right? 6 values we need to provide. 75, 80. Then 85, let's say, like 90, right? Then let's say again 76 or something like that, right? So we need to provide 6 values, that, right? Okay, and we create a data frame out of it. It's a df new pd dot data frame for it, right? And we pass our data thing into it, right? Let's try to visualize whether we are getting the df new or not. df new. Okay, yes, so we are getting it. So let's try to go for now the group by thing over it. So df new dot group by. Okay, and over what I need to group by divisions. Okay, and what I need to group together, I want to calculate the sum of marks a particular division. Okay, so let's say a division for different students, how many marks are in total, right? That way, right? So that will be your marks. Sorry for that, marks, right? And a dot sum over it. Okay, so this will be giving you, for that, what happened? We came with marks, sorry, right? That way. Okay. Mm, uh, is that understood, Dipshi, right? Was the point clear for that group by thing? Okay. Dipshi Jen, I think she asked the question, right? She. Okay. So was it clear or not, Miss? Can I have response from? Okay. Apart from a number related types, can string objects can be used to group by? We are using a string object, right, Divshi, for group by. We are using a division for group by here, right? We were using the company name for group by over here. What you have to do after that group by, right? That if you have to do some arithmetic over it, right? What you will do after grouping by a company name, right? You will have to either go for looking for the records of their cells, right? Or you will find out what is the minimum mean marks of that particular division, right? So if you have to apply that kind of statistical or mathematical operation over there, then you will refer to that column which will be having numerical values over there, right? Got it? Right? So in that context, it will be a numerical value, right? But you are grouping by on the string values. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go for two more points and then we will conclude our session. We can find out the unique values from a data frame, and we can find out the instances, number of instances from a data frame also. So for example, this is the data frame which we'll create. Okay, so there will be column 1 and column 3. Okay, and there are two instances of the same number, right? So this is multiple occurrence kind of thing, right? So if I print this data frame, this will be the data frame, correct? And if I want to find out the unique values of my column 2, right? Only unique values. I can use a dot unique method over my data frames that column. Okay. So in that context, I will get only unique appearances of it, right? If I want to calculate how many times a value is repeated, okay, or its occurrences basically, right? That I can do by using a dot value counts. Okay. So if I go for that, right, it will tell you 4 repeated twice, right, and 5 once, and 6 one only, right? Okay. So unique and value counts. Okay. And a very important last point is file handling for your pandas. If you want to import a CSV file into your environment, right, Python environment, you can use pandas for it. The method for it, which is utilized for CSV explicitly, is dot read CSV, read underscore CSV. You have to provide the full path of the file which you want to import, right? The usefulness of this method is that it will directly convert whatever you as a file into a data frame. So you don't need to, go for a PD dot data frame again for converting it to something, right? So you can directly pass it to this PD dot read underscore CSV as a CSV file, and it will get converted into a data frame. Okay. So let's try to, there is a random file test1.csv for transactions. Okay. Sells data basically, right? So it got converted into a data frame. Okay. So just to look at it, like for example, type of it. Okay, right. So it is a data frame now. Okay. So we don't have to explicitly do it. On the other hand, if we want to save our data from our manipulation or data analysis, if it is a data frame, for example, to something, okay, so we need to create a file from our manipulations, right? That we can do with the help of pandas objects also. So if df6 is our pandas object, right, it is a data frame basically. If we have to save it to some file for later use, we can use dot to csv, to underscore csv method for it, right? And we need to just give a name for that file. Okay. Now I'm just talking about CSV over here. We can utilize for Excel, we can utilize for JSON. There are a lot of formats which are supported by Pandas thing. So you can, definitely run through its documentation for finding out what are the different functions and parameters for it. Okay. But let's say if I have to create this data frame into some file CSV, right? So for that, df6 dot to underscore CSV and some file name we have to give. I think I have utilized that particular parameter. So I will go for the data file for this, right? Okay. If I run this, whatever location you are in for that Jupyter notebook, the file will be created for you in that location. So data5.csv. It will have the same interest which we have created into our data frame. Okay. So this way, heterogeneous data is very easily handled by pandas. Okay. It can be imported into a data frame, which is a Python object for pandas, right? And we can do different manipulations. Those we have seen, through this particular interaction, right? So that is possible, and we can also create a file from this also, right? So that is file handling part of it. Okay. Yeah. So is it done? Means up to this point, the things are clear. Any questions? Sorry for stretching it long. Yes, yes, I will share the notebook. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I will pass it to Magam, sir, so it can be passed to other people if it is possible, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yes, the presentation as well as the Jupyter notebook, it will be passed. Yeah, definitely. Okay, any other questions? Do we have any questions for this? Yes, yes, thank you. And I hope it was useful for you guys, right? Yeah, okay, great. Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
thank you.
Sagar, sir, for sharing the basic about the Jupyter data frames and why we use the uh, pandas. Okay, and how it's the application with the practical demonstration. Okay,
Thank you.
hope that all the participants got the from the basic how it will be used and practical demonstration. Thank you, sir. And
Great.
I also thanks to all the participants for your active participation. Once we will share after completion of this session, we will record. We also recording it and upload in our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
We also uploaded our previous recorded video also. So if any participant want to go through the basic, so go through all the previous video, and so you will got the all the ideas. Also, it's a continuous session series. Okay, so we will also upload the next onward session, recorded session. Okay, so thank you once again. Thank you, Sagar sir, and
thank
all
you,
the
sir. Thank you.
for your active participation.
Yeah.
We will meet soon in the next session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for their active participation, and it was great interacting with you all guys.